My name is Alex Yampolskiy. I'm a CEO of SecurityScorecard, the leading security rating platform in the world. In this video series called Security DNA, I'm going to talk to people from all walks of life, board members, CIOs, CISOs, industry innovators, about what cybersecurity means to them and the latest trends. Welcome. Today we're lucky to speak to Nuno Teodoro, who's a global CISO for Truphone. Nuno has a treasure trove of cybersecurity expertise. He studied cybersecurity at Harvard, worked and led security at companies like Vodafone, Allianz. He's a board member of ISACA in Portugal. So Nuno, it's a pleasure to have you here with us on a Security DNA video series.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to talk about managing security and private data in a global digital environment. So you're a global CISO for Truphone. And my first question is, how do you approach managing security for global organizations? There's always so many things you could do. So how do you prioritize what to focus on first?
Well, that's actually a very good question. So I think prioritization always comes from the understanding of the business ground you understand in the first place, with compliance, contractual requirements, alongside with most of the regulatory and legal obligations. That is the first stage in properly directing resources and investment allocation, and actually maintaining the organizational obligations and avoiding not only potential financial penalties, but also ensuring that we are not breaking trust on the most basic levels. I don't really see the difference between being a global organization on prioritization, but I think that the main focus that we need to have is understanding what we have in terms of relevance for the business, understanding the core service that we provide for the customers, and of course understanding the responsibilities that we have towards our contractual obligations, our regulations, and our legal obligations.
I think also the advice that you gave, that it's so crucial for a CISO to understand the business that you're in so that you tailor your programs to the business, is something very important. You know, if you're in retail, you should tailor your programs towards retail. If you're in financial services, you should tailor it to financial services. So that was very good advice. So the second question I have is, Truphone manages a lot of sensitive customer data. You're dealing with a lot of sensitive, personally identifiable information. What has been your success in managing and protecting the sensitive PII within your organization? What has worked for you and what has not worked for you?
Well, as a mobile operator, Truphone, of course, it must process PII. It's basically one of the things that we do the most. Namely, not we only process the normal end user PII, but also because Truphone operates in a very specific segment on mobile recording, we deal with financial transactions mobile recording, which, as you can understand, is of the utmost confidentiality. So I believe that our success has been because we know what data types we have. We understand the data flows, and we try to apply a holistic, secure by design approach to our processes and activities. I'll say that basically there's no silver bullet for this, but there are some basic controls that must exist. For example, every project that we have in Truphone, we apply a security and privacy impact assessment, which is not only a best practice, but allows the cybersecurity team to have visibility on which applications and which processes have which data types, and assess the implementation on what we call the minimum security baselines that we then enforce security and privacy within the architecture.
So my third question is, what has worked for you to communicate security to the board? What type of metrics do you use to get your board to understand the risk and also the value of what the security team does? How do you communicate? How do you translate the technical things into language that the board really understands?
Well, that's in fact a great question. Chief Information Security Officers often have several programs to oversee, and it's often not feasible to communicate everything to the board. I'm lucky enough to work in an organization where the board acknowledges and recognizes the relevance of cybersecurity. So that creates another level of understanding and opens up for conversations much more productive for my side. what has really worked pretty well for myself is to select the programs that fundamentally drive the strategy and values that I want to steer for cybersecurity within the organization. Of course, aligning everything with what matters to the business. So basically, I have perceived that having KPIs on the main certification status, because they have a direct impact on existing and new business, our top cyber incidents and risks, because they can have either regulatory, contractual, or financial penalties, and understand the scope of vulnerability and patch management within the company, as well as the internal security audits on specific business services, are some of the key metrics that I pass to the board. And of course, it's always good to see that they understand the value of that, and they understand how we want to steer the direction of cybersecurity within Truphone.
So you're a member of ISACA, you belong to various type of organizations. What are some interesting trends that you currently observe in the current environment? Obviously, a lot of things shifted. We're all, for the most part, working from home. People don't travel as much. Like, what are the trends in security technologies that you observed that you keep an eye on in the current environment? Like, what would you find super valuable right now as a CISO that may not exist?
That's a tricky one. Thank you for that. I think that the trends that I'm seeing currently, it's probably a change of technology landscape. Everyone talks about the cloud, but the cloud is being more massively used. Everything is pretty much decentralized at the moment. The entire infrastructure is moving to a different technologies. You have different ways of deploying and implementing services. You have different infrastructures being created within the cloud that support microservices. You have a lot changing in the past couple of years, and things will change much more in the next few years. So what I think is valuable is for a CISO not to be stuck to the past, and to be able to tackle with these new changes, with these new technologies, and to reinvent himself. I know that the main controls are still the same, but the way that we need to implement them will potentially change. So we'll need to be more efficient, we'll need to be more effective, because the business depends on speed, depends on effectiveness, depends on efficiency. So as a CISO, we must always be a business enabler. So we need to cope with that.
Great leader in a space, great insights. Nuno, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.